ears and engage your brain. You're listening to Grounded with best-selling author and speaker Ryan Dobson.
Hey everybody, Ryan Dobson here on Grounded with my good friend Tobin Heim.
Hello, hello.
Today's a good day.
It is a good day.
I'm not wearing headphones.
Ah, that's my favorite.
Yeah. We have an in-studio guest, and it is also on video. Intern Andy. I almost said engineer.
Intern
Andy.
Here with the cameras.
That's right.
Rolling today.
You can come watch it. It's like a TV show, just better.
Everybody can check out my stash.
Yeah, your cop stash.
Yeah. Get a good shot of that, Andy.
That's right.
It's coming in. I can't wait to see what happens.
You need some aviators.
I'm going to bring some, and I'm going to get a policeman's hat, and that's going to be my new deal.
Yeah. Well, let's introduce our guest.
Yes, let's do.
His name is Ed Galisewski. I'm getting that right, aren't I?
That's good. Ed Galisewski, yep.
Yes. My producer had to write it out phonetically for me, which is so kind. So kind. And intern Melissa produced this program.
Isn't that cool?
Shout out to Melissa.
Yay,
I was a little
Melissa.
nervous. I was talking to Whitney a few days ago, and I'm like, what's the prep going to be like? She's like, oh, it's going to be good. She's doing a really good job. She loved the book, And so I started reading it. The book's good, and the prep is phenomenal. So thank you, intern Melissa.
Yay.
Yeah. Ed, you've got a great book. It's called A Simpler Faith, Hope for People Who Struggle with Church. There are so many good things in here. Tobin and I were talking about it. We've got so many friends that have been in this situation, and we're going to dive into this. I highly, highly recommend this to our listeners. But what I like to do in interviews is figure out how you got to be where you are today. It's one thing to write a book, but for me, I want to be vested in the person. I want to know what your background is. I know a little bit about it because I've been reading the prep, which is nice. But let's jump back to the beginning. Where were you born?
I was born in Union, New Jersey.
Union, New Jersey.
Yeah, 1961. So I just hit 50 this past summer. So
it's a milestone.
50.
Yeah. Just hitting midlife.
Yeah.
Hopefully with technology, we'll be living to be 100.
Wouldn't that be great?
No, it'd be awful.
Come on.
Can you imagine what I'm going to look like and feel like at 100?
You might feel zippy. You might be one of those people that, you're on your good diet now.
Technology's really going to have to increase for me to feel zippy.
Well, I'm assuming it will. I mean, imagine what things were like 50 years ago.
Remember I told you that I woke up in the middle of the night and I couldn't turn my neck because it was in so much pain?
Yes.
Yeah, I'll be 42 in a couple months.
Advil, man.
You're adding 58 years of that.
Yeah.
No.
I was going to say they do have good drugs for that. I'm in the pharmaceutical industry.
Yeah, you're a pharmaceutical rep, yes.
So you can get things that'll help that out. So
yeah, I had something help it out last night.
You have something invested in us living longer.
In some ways, yes. Yeah.
So you're born in Jersey. What are your parents like?
Born in Jersey. Mom and dad were a typical blue-collar couple. And when I say typical blue-collar, the nickname for my mom and dad from family and friends was Archie and Edith. So if that gives you, and I know I'm dating myself, but that is an old throwback to All in the Family. And
listeners that don't know that, you got to Google it.
And what that means is they were just my mom was a stay-at-home mom. My dad was a painter. So he painted in a painters union and, home every day at 4:30, dinner on the table at 4:35.
Yeah.
On my street, every man in the morning would walk out from their houses to go in a delivery outfit of some kind. It's either a blue outfit, a green outfit, a brown outfit, you name it.
Yeah.
True blue-collar men.
Uniforms everywhere.
That were the salt of the earth. The servicemen.
When you grew up in an Italian-Polish neighborhood.
Yeah, exactly.
See, this thing, I grew up in Southern California. So it's not that there aren't now pocket neighborhoods, but that's a fairly recent thing, So I have no idea what it would be like to grow up in a Polish-Italian neighborhood in Union, New Jersey. And you've got an Italian mom.
And
Polish dad.
Polish dad.
So give me an idea of what that's like. I'm Southern California boy, and we're a melting pot. It was just, hey, let's move to the West Coast, kind of thing.
It was just classic. I mean, it just, I make fun of myself, but a simple family. I could tell you that during the course of the week, a typical week, hamburger helper was always one day a week. Meatloaf was another. Spam always found its way to the table. It just was, a real wonderful blue-collar upbringing.
Yeah.
Just real.
Close family, got brothers and sisters?
Got one brother, Michael.
Yeah.
And he was 4 years older than I.
Yeah.
And it just was good. I mean, the little Cape Cod houses, and it just had a real feel of that simple family. It was good. It really was a good childhood.
Family know the Lord?
Family knew the Lord. I'll say yes, but here's where kind of the story starts to unfold, because we grew up in a Roman Catholic household.
Yeah.
And went to church was in Springfield.
Really? Italian Polish neighborhood, Roman Catholic?
Absolutely, yeah.
Surprising.
Shocking. I would say it was probably 90% if I looked around.
Oh,
just the couple streets around me. So my mom and I attended. So all four of us went through our baptism, communion, and confirmation.
Okay.
But my brother and my father, after their confirmation, stopped going. So they kind of disengaged from their faith journey at that point, which is not unlike a lot of Catholics in America.
Sure.
I mean, you look at some of the statistics, and a fair amount of the Catholic people that are born into Catholic homes stop practicing their Catholicism, usually around that age. But my mom and I went, so we were diligent. We would go every single Sunday, confession on Wednesdays after school. It was real classic to kind of go in and do that.
Yeah.
But in my family, you saw two that continued and two that parked their faith.
Okay.
So that was something that I had a chance to see early on.
Why did you continue?
Dynamic.
Yeah, what was the difference between you and your brother and your dad? It seems like when the masculine influences in your life are like, well, we're not going to do this anymore.
Yeah.
What was the difference with you?
For me, there was something inside me that just when I was around especially in the Catholic faith, when there's so many crucifixions and so many depictions of Jesus Christ on the cross and going through the crucifixion, that I just was so drawn to that. It was ridiculous. I mean, I could not kneel and literally just stay at the foot of the cross enough. There's something about that symbol, watching Jesus on that cross. It drew me. It spoke to me, and to this day, that is the main theme as I started putting together the book, saying, what is it that truly...
Well, the last illustration in your book is the scene of the cross.
At the foot of the cross.
Yep.
That if people just figuratively knelt at the foot of the cross and pretended that that's what their faith was about, I don't think you can go wrong, because it's the raw moment of Christianity.
What kind of student were you? What was high school like for you?
Not good.
No,
not good. High school was probably like a C student, C minus.
Yeah.
I'm with you. Welcome to the club.
Yep.
New Jersey public schools.
You're among friends.
2.2, baby.
Oh man, so that would have been good. That would have been a good GPA. And then when I went to college, so from high school, was playing football, did very well, was like a very successful high school football program in New Jersey, kind of like would be whatever the best ones are in Colorado, was like one of the better ones in New Jersey, but was smaller. So as a 200-pound, 205-pound lineman, went to Staten Island, New York to play at a Division III school. So it was Wagner College, which is Division III football, and I did very well.
Yeah.
But I always had a dream of wanting to play Division I. When you just want to, can I do this? Can I really do that? So Union, New Jersey, then
from
Staten
MMA
Island.
fans, which hopefully we're gaining more and more.
There's at least 7.
It's like going from the lower promotions to the UFC. That's what you want.
Yeah.
That's what you want. That's Division I. That's the pros.
Yeah.
It's the big show.
The big show.
So, did you meet your wife in California, or did you meet her in...
California.
Okay, so
California. Yeah.
So you're playing for Wagner.
Yeah, so Union High School, then Wagner for 2 years, and then not doing well school-wise there either.
All right.
Really just kind of joined the fraternity and kind of like an Animal House kind of scenario, so not going well there.
Yeah.
And at that point, my father had that one that talk with me, and he said, I can't support you anymore. You're not doing your part. What are we going to do? You're either going to be on your own, so...
Well, we really do have a kindred spirit. I went to college for 2 years. My parents went, hey, we're wasting money on you. Yeah. You better go find a job and a place to live.
Yeah.
And that place to live is not home.
Yeah, well, it's funny because at that point, my uncle, which he's just Uncle Rick, it's just such a good blue-collar painter in the Painters Union.
Yeah.
He sat down with me and he tried to enlist me in the Painters Union. He says, you're wasting your time with this college stuff. He's going, you get in here. He says, your dad's the shop steward. He goes, we'll have you, instead of doing 4 years being the apprentice, he goes, we'll get you through in 3. He's going, That's
great. He's not cutting time in half.
It literally reminded me of years later, it was the talk that Rudy and in the movie Rudy had with his uncle going, "You're a Rudiker. You need to be in the Steel. What are you in the Steel? What are you doing going to college?" When everyone went to Notre Dame, and his uncles and his family are going, "You're throwing your life away. You could be a steel worker here, And my uncle's going, "Eddie, you could be a painter and you could take over your dad's." And I said, "Uncle Rick, I'm going to give it a shot." So that was that. Going from Staten Island to San Diego.
Now, how'd you get to San Diego? Did you scholarship?
No scholarship because.
Did your parents still help you out?
They helped me a little bit, just kind of like get out there.
Yeah.
But it really was going to be a you're on your own at this point.
Wow.
And what I did is I've had a buddy who went to Wagner who had transferred out to San Diego State University, the Aztecs, and he said, "Ed, new coach coming in, change the scenery, brand new, and that's not bad to go on." So I sent some films out, and one coach called me back and said, "Hey, if you come out and you make the traveling squad, we'll give you a scholarship."
Yeah.
Well, they tell that to everybody, but it's just to incentivize you. So went out there, worked hard, made, kind of did well enough to make the team. But at that point, it was like, well, we're going to give you a little meal plan. We're going to give you some book money, but we're not going to really go the full route. So I was there for about a year and a half, redshirt year, and then the next year. And then I, at some point, had to say, I've hit the Peter principle. I've rose to my level of incompetence, and that's where you just say, I don't think I'm going to be a star here. It was time to either just finish school or make some life choices out there or come back home.
Mm-hmm. Now, did you finish school?
I finished school.
So you got your degree?
I got my degree.
Paid for it?
Yeah, paid for it myself.
Good for you.
And finished up. Yeah, I was the first person in my family to get a college degree.
Really?
Wow. Yeah. It's everybody was an electrician or a plumber.
How'd they feel about that?
They were psyched.
Really?
It was real emotional.
How'd your uncle feel about it?
He told me later on he was proud.
Oh, good for you. How'd you pay for school?
Worked. Just was doing some teaching assistant stuff in the local area, and then started doing some bouncing at some clubs in the Pacific Beach area. Yeah. Pacific Beach.
Been
PB.
There. Yeah.
Oh.
Tobin was an Oceanside guy for a while, and I was a San Clemente guy, so we've been down there a million times.
PB. Stuck there many, many times.
Yeah. PB Cafe, Diego's were a couple places down there where Pacific Beach kind of that.
And you were probably in awesome shape at that point, so you were well suited for your job.
I was, yeah.
Weren't you the school mascot at one point?
I did. So after I got done playing football, and at San Diego State, I realized I need to stop playing ball, and I wanted to finish my school. I kind of got into bodybuilding. Got hooked because I had a lot of competitive energy. I love training.
Well, that's Southern California in what?
This is
80s?
84, 85.
Oh,
this is pumping iron. This is total pumping iron.
Yeah.
So started doing some bodybuilding shows, and then the assistant athletic director saw me on campus one day, and she says, "I heard you're not playing," and she says, "We need a mascot for next year. What do you think?" I'm like, "Not going to be a mascot." I figured it was like a furry uniform or something.
Right, that's what I was going to say. Yeah.
And then she goes, No. She says, we're going to reenact. We used to do this thing called Monty Montezuma, which was an Aztec warrior, and we're going to redo that, and it'll be a loincloth.
An Aztec warrior named Monty.
Yeah, Monty
Montezuma. And I said, "I don't know." She goes, "Well, we'll pay $100 a game cash." I said, "Oh, I'll do that." Yeah, we'll do. I mean, it's college.
Yeah.
$100 a game.
But
you're a hero.
But it's not like a big
you're
floppy.
An instant hero.
It's not like a big floppy outfit either, isn't it?
No, you're not the Philly freak. You're not the San Diego chicken.
It's a lot like the USC Trojan,
super ripped.
right?
I just figured I brought that. It's on the website. If you go to the website, for asimplerfaith.com, one word.
Fear. You sure you want to see this?
I want to see it.
We
sure?
have,
I'm comfortable in my
that
body.
was Monty when I was.
Holy cow!
Nice.
Is that a flaming spear?
Flaming spear, man.
Flaming spear.
Flaming spear. You'd go out there. You can taunt the other team, and
That's amazing.
You know what? Amongst the mascots, the other mascots hate you.
Right.
They're in big furry outfits that smell of sweat and someone else's breath inside there, and you're walking around like, check me out.
Yeah, there's some
Showing off the guns.
there's some bunny across the field looking at me going,
"Gosh, who's going to win that fight? I got a flaming spear. What do you have? Bunny ears and a cottontail." Oh, that's fantastic. That's fantastic. So you graduate, what's your degree in?
Degree is in business management, and started interviewing for some sales jobs. All the guys at the gym where I trained tended to be sales reps for different companies.
Sure.
And a high percentage of them
Well, you look good. You've got confidence. You've got discipline, because obviously you can't have that without looking the way that you do. Had you met your wife yet, or
we were just starting to date there at the local gym. So we met at the gym.
You met at the gym.
Nothing romantic. She was doing wide grip pull-ups, and I went, "Wow, I like a woman that can do wide grip pull-ups. That's pretty impressive. So I
Yeah,
went
it's
over and
rare.
introduced myself. So
With CrossFit coming in, getting bigger and bigger, I see more women able to do pull-ups.
Yeah.
But I remember my friend Courtney White, Joe White's daughter, Courtney. I saw her doing pull-ups at camp one day, and I was like, "You got to be kidding me!" She was cranking them out, pull-ups.
yeah.
So that was pretty impressive.
So so we met there, and then I got hired on by a pharmaceutical company, and so I started working from there. That was in San Diego, and I got hired in at Newport Beach. So I had the area.
Aw.
So here's
I'm
my.
so sorry.
What
Here's
was
my.
your wife doing at the time?
She's a counselor. She's a marriage and family child counselor, MFCC, and has done that for 30 years.
So you met her at the gym, and she was an MFCC.
And she had her own private practice.
Wow.
Yeah. So at
And my
that.
wife is born and raised Newport Beach.
Oh.
We were just there over Easter. My brother-in-law still lives on the peninsula.
Okay.
So I've got twin nephews that are pro surfers, and it's rough. Yeah.
So my territory was from San Clemente up to Costa Mesa. So I just rode up and down Pacific Coast Highway.
Best part of
You know,
Southern
Laguna,
California.
Unbelievable.
Laguna Niguel, Hogue Hospital. I mean, that was my whole run up and down the whole area. And I just celebrated 25 years with sales.
Same organization.
Same company, first job out of college.
Wow.
So I'm a
Unbelievable.
one company guy.
That's rare too.
Yeah. I stick with things. If it's working, I'm not flighty.
That's fantastic. You know what? I got to ask you. This is a little bit off topic, but we were talking about guys, and your uncle saying you ought to learn a trade. I was talking with my friend the other day. We were. I've got a 1965 Chevy van, and we were chopping windows to put in my van. It has no windows. It's just got driver's side, passenger side windshield. So it really looks like I'm trying to kidnap somebody. And it's primer gray. It's really an ugly looking van.
It's like a Scooby-Doo van or
well,
something.
it would
huh?
Let's
be
hope.
if it didn't look so scary with it. But the guy that's helping me is starting his own trade school. And you've got a ton of kids going to college. It's a down economy. They're getting out thinking, I've got a degree, I should be able to get a job. They've got massive school debt. I wonder if it's not time to go back to learning trades.
Yeah.
Where I was talking to a family in Minot, North Dakota. Her son is an Eagle Scout, graduated high school, and he's working in the oil fields in North Dakota. And he's starting out he's literally making double what I made out of college.
Yeah.
And I had a degree. And he's working the oil fields, learning a trade. And, they're doing well. It's not, I love college. I believe in college. But I just wonder, it seems to be.
Well, there's a certain up by your bootstrap sensibility to that. I mean, we had a guest on not long ago. We were talking about the Great Depression and how people were able to survive that because they could do a whole lot of stuff. So the guy would go to work every day as a painter, but he could also fix cars. And somebody else would go to work as a plumber, but he could also put in a garden, or that there was just this.
There's a whole lot of skills people had, and
this sense that people could do more than one thing, and that's what allowed people to survive through some of the really, really rough times. And as we face that in our existing economy, I think there's going to be a return to people who can do multiple things in order to get by. I mean, look at you, Ryan. You're doing radio, but you're also rebuilding a van.
Wow.
You're also putting in an incredible garden. You also hunt. You're a man of many trades.
The gardening and the hunting I'll go with, but you're being very generous with my bodywork skills.
Okay, I'll take that one back.
All right.
Okay, but everything else is true.
Let me ask you this, Ed, though. You've been in the same company for 25 years. That is a rarity. There had to be times where you were like, you know what, I can't do this anymore. How do you teach that of
That's stick-to-itiveness.
sometimes you just stick it out. You've got a job. You've got insurance. You can provide. Sometimes you gotta just eat it.
Yeah, and I would say that I always looked at the larger picture. I mean, what does this job provide for me? It pays for my home mortgage. It gives me the health care.
Sure.
It gives me a chance to have a job, and I'm not working 16-hour days or nighttime shifts. I'm calling on offices during the day.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful job. I'm
You
very
got a son who
appreciative.
just graduated college.
Yeah.
And in a way, you want some of those values to get passed on.
Yeah, and that's what I coached him on. I just said, son, well, you just need to, for him, you just need to get on in and start building your resume.
Yeah.
First and foremost, whatever they do, as long as they're not doing something abusive to you, you just say, thank you, sir, may I have another, and work hard and show them that you're diligent, you're hardworking. And to be honest with you, over the 25 years, I really had very few times when I thought that, boy, I need to leave this and do something else. Because for me, so much of life is relational that in my sales, I do sales in a relational way. I'm not an in-your-face, hard, close somebody and make them kind of, let's not let that rep in anymore. They're my family.
Yeah.
I mean, so I call on them. I do business, but I do relationship.
Yeah.
So I'm visiting my friends during the day.
Yeah.
Makes it a wonderful day.
So what kind of people are you repping pharmaceuticals to?
For the 25 years with Abbott, in the early days, I used to do kind of everything that was in what they say in our bag, which was, antibiotics and blood pressure stuff and things. But for the past 16 years, I've been with the virology group, which deals with viruses, which basically I have 2 drugs that are 2 of the main players in the world of treating HIV.
Wow.
So so during the course of my day, everybody I deal with is HIV positive. All the patients, all the AIDS service organizations, even a lot of the physicians that I deal with are, they're not HIV positive, but a lot of the physicians are gay physicians who just have an empathy and a love for wanting to treat that community. Because for a while there, the medical community was like, I don't know if I want to do this. The hands off. And
I'm guessing there's a lot of reps that won't do that.
Yeah, there were. Which was so.
There's a stigma attached to it.
Yeah.
And you're a really relational person.
Yeah.
And obviously you have a lot of care and empathy for people. How does that change your day-to-day? I mean, 16 years, that's a long time. You know a lot about this now.
Yeah. And I could tell you, leading up to that point when I was doing the regular pharmaceutical stuff, my wife and I, and this kind of starts tying in a little bit to the book, and some of you'll, when you read one of the chapters, my energy is that my wife and I were looking at the church that we were at here in Colorado, and we just started seeing a lot of, it wasn't so direct, but it was just offhanded comments about the gay population, about AIDS, and you hear those awful comments from people within the Christian community of just, well, they brought it on themselves, and well, this is the devil's way of, and I remember Lena and I prayed like about 17 years ago. I said, we need to start getting out and start loving on some people that have HIV, that are dying of AIDS, work at a hospice someplace, just so that people, they just know that people who are Christians can love them unconditionally.
Like a Mother share grace with people?
Yeah, like Mother Teresa used to do, and the things that she used to just kind of just say, I don't care. I just want to go and just rock them and love them. So, and then the job came up. So I always look at it like I prayed about how could I get involved, and then a manager says, hey, you're one of the seasoned reps, and would you want to get involved in that community? And I said, sign me up.
I dealt a little bit with that. I speak at a lot of crisis pregnancy centers and homes for unwed moms. And every now and then you run into people. In fact, we really dealt with it when I went to Louisiana State Penitentiary, Angola. Yeah. I came back with empathy for some of the prisoners I met, and we got hate mail. And we just got hate mail. And it's like, they deserve to be. I didn't say some of the people that I was with don't deserve to be in prison. I'm not saying that, but I was saved by grace. I'm a sinner. When I was dealing with some of the CPCs, I'd have people like, well, those girls made their bed. They got to lay in it now. Wow. Really? So you're just going to throw away generations of people because they made a mistake. We've all made mistakes.
Amen.
Wow. So when did you move back to Colorado?
So we moved in 91.
Okay.
So up in Newport, or we lived actually in Mission Viejo, kind of in that Portola Hills, right by Saddleback Valley
That's
Church.
Where I lived. I lived in Mission Viejo.
Portola Hills, right by Cook's Corner.
Yeah.
So where Cook's Corner was, I would assume that you're kind of a bit of a motorcycle kind of a car guy.
I had a 78 Triumph. I've been to Cook's Corner a million times.
Cook's
the
Corner,
blessing of the bikes.
Yeah. So Portola Hills is where we were. And then in 91, Abbott was, the company was they were kind of expanding, and they just said, hey, if you just want to go someplace, you can do a lateral move and go. Moved out to Littleton, Colorado, and been here since 1991. It's been a great move. Yeah. Great place to raise kids.
See, my wife and I were just in California, and we love it. Both of us were born and raised there, but I don't want to raise my family in California. Yeah. It's just too hard. It's not that you can't do a good job. It's harder to do a good job with that much outside influence.
Yeah, and also just for that, at that point, before they put in a lot of the different Bake Parkway and different ones, we used to go visit Lynette's parents that lived out in Lake Elsinore, and we could be on the road for 6 hours just trying to get 91 and 15. And I just
still be on the road for 6
awful.
hours.
It was awful, yeah. So it's been a
and
great
did you have
move.
kids before you moved here?
When we moved out, my son was maybe 2 years old, and my daughter was 6 months when we came out here.
All right.
Just starting off.
Yeah, fantastic.
Just starting off.
Let's jump into the book. You wrote A Simpler Faith, Hope for People Who Struggle with Church. I know a ton of people that struggle with church. What was the impetus to write this for you?
Yeah, just going back to say that my Catholic experience and then going from Staten Island to San Diego State. At San Diego State, got involved in a Campus Crusade for Christ group there, and just wanted to be around kids that were other Christian kids.
Yeah.
And what I experienced coming from a Catholic background and as a child, loving the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit, my Creator, my Savior on the cross, and my spiritual guide.
Yeah.
And in the book, I used that Creator, Savior, Guide just to kind of change the vernacular from Father, Son, Holy Spirit, because a lot of men that grew up Catholic have a little bit of a knee jerk when it comes to too much of the just the stuff, the traditional things. So,
Yeah.
But when I went to that college group and was with them, I was amazed at how those kids in the group viewed my Catholic upbringing. They literally were trying to deprogram me from what I experienced and they never asked me, hey, tell us about it. Is Jesus Christ your Lord and Savior? Have you accepted Christ? And I would have said, yes, I have. It was more, that was the old, this is the new. We need to bring you over to our way of doing this.
Yeah.
Because it is different. I mean, everybody has different rules and rituals. But to see that up close and personal.
Like a competition.
Competition, us versus them mentality, that I had to literally devoid myself of my everything Catholic and leave that to participate in this group. And I did, because I wanted to have a Christian connection.
Yeah.
And that was the only game in town.
Do you find the us versus them mentality a lot in the church?
Yes.
Why do we need that?
We don't. We don't.
Why do we
need
feel
it.
like we need it? So we create environments. Because you were just talking about working with people with HIV. Yeah. I'm sure there could be a lot of people in your church or in churches that would go, I could never do that.
Yeah.
It's that us versus them mentality which keeps our church doors closed. Yeah. You're at Campus Crusade for Christ, which is interesting because you talk about the book. It says hope for those who struggle with church. You dedicated it to your dad and brother, both who struggled with church. Yeah. I'm guessing you meet lots of kids at Campus Crusade who say things like, "Oh, I went to church when I was younger," and they're kind of dabbling their toes back in the quote unquote church game by going to Campus Crusade. And then you've got that us versus them. You joined. Yeah. I imagine there were people that grew up Roman Catholic that would be like, I'm not going to be part of your game. I'm not playing that game.
Yeah.
Because you've almost got to turn your back on your family to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. And actually that's sadly, that's what happened. I got so indoctrinated in the evangelical speak and the things that I learned there when I was at school, that when I would go home for a Christmas vacation or go home for a little bit, I found myself being very adversarial with family, with my Uncle Rick, with my father. Oh my gosh. I started thumping. I was just boom, boom, boom. And so that was troubling to me. So,
And for people that have struggled with church, this certainly isn't helping.
Yeah, because now you're starting to see this aggression and this, we're better than you. So I would say that for my research and talking to thousands of men over the course of the last 20 years and asking them what are the things that have brought us down this path, and it really is the systems that are in place. Systems meaning the denominations. So many different denominations, people who are in charge of the denominations. They care more about membership, about growing the roles of the church, about the different rules and rituals that you might do, how you do baptism, how you do communion, the role of women in the church. Are you pre-trib? Are you post-trib?
That's one of the funny cards. Okay, I'm going to reference a cartoon, and then I'm going to ask you about it, and then we're going to jump back into the topic.
Good.
He's got, is it wrestling or boxing? I think it's wrestling. You got two big giant wrestlers.
WWF kind of a thing,
Yeah, two giant wrestlers, and one of them's going, you have to dunk, and the other one's going, sprinkle.
Yeah. So and when I gave that chapter to Drew, he just came up with that, man, and he He just, and when Drew, the gentleman who did the comics for me, he just picked up on it. And really it is, that's how silly, that's how childish we get over stuff like that.
It is.
And we will look at a person. I got so indoctrinated into my way that I thought that everything that we did at my place, at ABC Church that I went to, that if I looked down the street and I knew somebody was from a different denomination and they did baptism a little different, they did communion a little different, I would literally in my mind say, "But I need to try to share with them because they're lost over that one issue." I didn't have a conversation that said, "Do you know Jesus Christ as your Savior? I mean, have you accepted Christ as?" That didn't enter into the picture. It was more, do you do the things the way I do them? And if not, then, but that's man-made. That's man-made add-ons.
You know, it's funny. Your wife's a counselor, and I've counseled some couples who do this in their marriage, where, you know, the wife wants the husband to load the dishes in the dishwasher, but it's not good enough that he loads them in the dishwasher. He's got to do it right. You got to do it my way. In fact, listen, I got to tell it on me. It's the opposite in my household. For some reason, my brain works a certain way. There is a way that you're supposed to load the dishwasher. The people that manufactured it and made it designed it in a way to be most efficient if you load dishes a certain way. Now, my wife just throws dishes in, and I look at it. I've reorganized it. I'm an idiot when I do things like that. It doesn't matter. Why am I unhappy? The dishes are loaded. They're going to get clean. But me, it's like, yeah, but you can get more in if you just do it this way. It doesn't matter. But we, you know.
In the big picture, it doesn't matter. And that's what I think what the book tries to say.
And that's what you're trying to boil it down to, a simpler faith.
I just started trying to find out what is the basic concepts that can draw people. I mean, and again, I want to be real clear about this. People have asked me. They said, "Wow, you're trying to get like a Muslim and a Jew and a Hindu and this." I'm not. The book is really focused on Catholicism and then all of Protestantism.
Sure,
it's triune, Trinitarian faiths.
Sure,
Father, Son, Holy Spirit.
But these issues can be transferred to all faiths.
Absolutely.
Andy Brainer is a friend of mine and a friend of the program. And he was just in Saudi Arabia at a gathering where they're trying to bring Muslims and Christians together to build bridges. And the stories he was telling, I got so choked up hearing a couple of them because he's just extending his hand out to people. He's not afraid of the gospel. He's not afraid of his faith. He's not watering his faith down. He's just saying, hey, listen, let's just talk. Ask me questions. I'll answer the best I can. I'll ask you questions. We can get to know each other, and it opens those doors. And I said, here's the problem. Be ready for people to attack you who are Christians. And he said, why? I go, well, there's a couple of groups that have been trying to get into Saudi Arabia for the last 15 years, and you just stumble in blindly talking to a king who flew you over. And he's like, oh, yeah. I'm like, they're going to be bummed. And I look at that, and I think it hurts my soul a little bit, because instead of that organization... And they haven't done it yet. I'm just ready for it. Instead of saying, hey, you know what? We've been trying to get in there for 15 years. We've been studying this for so long. Here's our insights. Is there any way we can help you, partner with you, work together? Oftentimes it's, oh, well, you're a heretic and you're afraid of your faith. Kind of a thing. So let me ask you a question, though. There are some people who grew up in Catholicism who don't know the Lord as their personal Savior.
Sure.
So there's got to be a way to build that bridge without saying everything you did in the past is worthless and, all that you do is wrong and you've got to do everything our way. I think about my grandpa. He died at 92 or 93. And when my dad would ask him about his faith, he'd go, oh, Jim, when I was young, I talked to a priest. And he was a great man, not a good man, a great man. A week before he passed away, his local pastor, because he went to a Baptist church forever, that guy was so young. He's younger than me. He's like 30 years old, going in and talking to someone who's 3 times his age. Shared the gospel in a way that touched his heart. He accepted the Lord there, and for a week, I don't know what you do when you become more than great. He couldn't stop telling the doctors and nurses about his salvation. And we're so thankful. Part of the reason I think you wrote this book is when your brother passed away. And young. How old was he?
49.
49.
49.
I mean,
yeah, Michael had some health issues that he wasn't dealing with, some blood pressure things and stuff that kind of caused some irregular heartbeat and a thickening of the heart. And then he had some GI, kinds of things. And he left himself exposed. So it was, and I beat myself up for, should I be my brother's keeper? Well, you'd like to be, but I wasn't there. So
I know.
Yeah.
Well, at one point, there's a quote in the book that said, do I have something to say? And if I do, today's the day to do it.
Yeah.
So is that the process for starting the book?
Yeah, it was. After Michael passed, I realized if I'm going to do it, and if I'm not, then just move on. But when you see that happen in your only sibling, and at 49 years old, at that point I was 45, and I just prayed about it. I just said, Lord, if there's a need for this out there, then help me put this together. And it came together so well. I just met kindred spirit of a gentleman who helped me with editing, a gentleman who helped me with writing.
Well, let's talk about the cartoons. How'd you get? Is it Drew?
Drew Litton.
Drew Litton's a famous cartoonist in Colorado.
Yeah.
Did a ton of stuff for the Denver Post.
Yeah, he actually was employed for 24 years with the Rocky Mountain News back when there was the two papers, when you had the Post and the Rocky Mountain News. And he did a column there every week called Win, Lose, or Drew, which is classic, where he used to take Elway and all the Dante Bichette and whoever were the old sports, and he just does these one-picture captions of satirical sports comedy. And so I started. I met a gentleman named Caleb Sealing, who was my editor, and he hadn't been to church in years. Was going to more of a kind of a home church. Then he introduced me to a gentleman named Scott Sawyer, who helped me write the book, gifted writer, and I shared it with him. And he just says, Ed, my wife and I haven't been to church in 10 years.
Wow,
I'm in. Then I called up Drew, who I knew from a past church that we were at, and I said, Drew, I'm thinking about doing this, putting a book together, trying to deal with people who have been disconnected, who have moved away.
Because you talk about the de-churched.
Yeah, the de-churched.
This is not necessarily an evangelistic tool.
Yeah.
It's to people that had gone to church and then, for one reason or another, have decided to leave the church and do their own thing. And a lot of this is on men. Why do you think it's men who leave the church? Because it really is. Men leave the church more than women do.
I know.
We've had David Morrow on, Why Men Hate Going to Church.
Yeah. Okay.
I've talked to him a great deal, and so I've got some of his ideas, but you've got a little different spin on this take.
Yeah. For most of the men that I talk to, they really can't take the concept of hypocrisy and watching people say something where I think typical men cannot relate sometimes. They see someone up front talking about overcoming and being able to live a life that's pure, and I'm in the book. I'm very blunt, and I just say that I'm a sinner who needs grace, and on a daily basis I struggle.
Yeah.
I struggle with sexual thoughts. I struggle with so much fantasizing kinds of things. And most men I sit down with when you're one-on-one say, man, it's just such a burden to deal with some of this stuff. And when they see someone up front who's painting a picture of, oh, you can reach certain levels and you can overcome, they look and they feel that maybe they're not living up to what they need to do. They feel discouraged.
And it's unobtainable.
And it's just going, well, if I can't do it, then why am I here?
Sure.
So they walk away.
Listen, for guys, if you want to end participation, give them a goal they know they can never reach.
Absolutely.
I'm not playing.
I used to call it the contest between the sins of the past and the sins of the present. And the idea that pastors, because they have to hold themselves to a certain standard, they're afraid of losing their jobs, they're really good at getting up and talking about the sin that they used to do. 10 years ago, I really struggled with XYZ. But then something happened,
Instead
and
of
now,
day stuff.
Instead of getting up and saying, yesterday I struggled with XYZ. And it's okay for them to put it way in the past. Because they're not going to be judged for that. But if they put it in the present, and if they're vulnerable, where men are going to relate to them, then they're afraid that their board of elders is going to come to them and go, oh, we didn't know you struggled with that. See ya.
But think about what you're saying. Honesty has no place here at our men's breakfast. We're going to have some pretense.
That's right.
And I was very dangerous because when I was at certain groups and I used to have men's retreats or I'd speak at men's breakfast, I would be very vulnerable. And I'd look around and I'd say, and everyone in the room deals with this too.
Sure.
And then I would get that stare at the end going, ooh, that's, we don't need to be that.
Don't be that honest.
And I go, yeah, why would we want to be that honest when we're kneeling at the foot of the cross and he knows everything? So there was a disconnect there.
Yeah.
And that's when I started getting a little bit. I mean, you'll see in the book. I mean, there's a. I'm calling people out, and I'm calling leaders out in some ways.
Yeah.
I'm really saying, stop the bickering, stop the pretending. We need to, and again, like I talked about, from Catholicism through all of Protestantism, since all those groups were founded on the cross of Jesus Christ, can we not do a better job looking like we're more unified than at odds with each other?
Right.
I mean,
and I want to make it clear, this is not church bashing.
no.
There are great churches doing great things.
No, it is. It's not. It's not bashing at all.
It's giving you a little bit of insight. And my dad taught me this a long time ago. As a speaker, I remember when I was early on in my speaking career, we'd do Q&A, and people would ask me questions, and I didn't know I could just say no. I don't have to answer that. Or I can answer it in a way where I'm honest, but I'm not pulling my pants down. Where I'm not going to make a fool of myself or my faith or my ministry or those things. There's a way to share, and I think pastors need to learn that. We've got this, reality TV mentality where it's not just that you share, but you flay yourself open
Overshare.
for, oversharing. Yeah.
To get that kind of scintillating,
Now notice this is not one of the big 5 publishers.
No. I didn't. I wasn't sure if people would accept it or want to, launch it the way it is, and I kind of wanted to have control over that. So I just went with the self-publishing with people who have been in the industry before.
Well, we were talking about Andy Brainer. He's got I think a 4-book contract with a publisher, and they're a good publisher, and I like them. Yeah. But he's really a youth ministry expert.
Yeah.
He's got a camp with kids, all summer long, and they said, what's the number, we want you to write a book for parents and, on youth. What's the number one issue facing youth today? And he goes, loneliness. Wow. And they're like, we can't sell a book on loneliness. Yeah. And he's like, they're like, what about sex? What about drugs? What about this? And he goes, it's all an issue that stems back to loneliness. Kids feel lonely. They feel isolated. Wow. And so they said, well, we can't do that. So he did his first one, and it's on teen sexuality. And then they came back to him because it did so well, and they said, okay, can you write the book on loneliness?
Yeah.
And I'm proud of them for doing that. And for the organizations that you're working with that are saying, let's make some obtainable goals for men. Let's do some things where you look at this and you go, okay, I can do that. I can work at this. We like to be fixers. We like to, solve problems.
Well, and I think that's what keeps it fresh. I mean, I come from a family where the majority of the men in my extended family don't go to church. All of them were raised in the church. Some of them were pastors at churches. Some of them were elders in churches. And with the exception of a couple, all of them have left the church because it hasn't changed in 30 or 40 years. And the stuff that they're seeing
happen, or at least
happen
they certainly think so.
At least that's their impression.
Yeah.
The stuff that they're seeing going on today, they've been there.
Yeah.
It's not fresh. It's not innovative. It's not reaching them. It's not goals-oriented. It's not achievable. It's the same feminized message that they've heard over and over and over. And they get to a point of going, I got better things to do.
Yeah. Okay, Ed, I got to ask you 2 questions, both related to this. One, why focus on men more than women? But 2, with what Tobin just said, I think, and maybe I'm wrong. Tell me if I'm wrong. If I am, I'd love to discuss it. Sometimes we need to tell those guys the same thing you would tell your son because you've been at your job for 25 years. Where you go, you know what? Is your church perfect? Nope. Is your pastor perfect? No. Is the program they designed for you perfect? It's not. Stick with it. This is going to benefit every area of your life, even sticking with it when you don't like it and it's not enjoyable and it's a struggle for you. That will benefit your life by sticking with something. So we're not fooling around with it. And maybe it's not all about me. Maybe it's the greater health of my family.
Right.
Maybe I'm not being ministered to perfectly, but my wife is and my kids are. And that should be good enough for a while until I can find ways to work with my local church to help men more.
Here's an interesting point, though.
I want him to answer this, though, on why men focused in the book.
So,
and then
and I would say when I meet with men in the book, at the end, it is a strong call that challenges men to get back to community.
That's
I
right.
mean, it
Yep.
is just, I mean, somebody told me, they said, because in there I actually use a phrase in one of the chapters, like around maybe 3/4 of the way through, where I just say, if you need to take a break, take a break. And somebody went, oh my gosh, you're telling people to leave. I said, no, you keep reading. I said, if you need to take a break because things are, it's like a bad relationship. If things are so toxic and you're just like, wake up every Sunday and you're like, oh, I don't want to, I mean, that's not good. So if you need to take a break, and just kind of get your wits about you, go to counseling, sit down with someone and talk, but get back to community. And I think men would go back to community. They need to. I just hope that community allows them to be vulnerable and open. And that's what I think is missing. I'm just thinking, Tobin, I mean, when you say that a lot of people in your family don't go, what was the missing element you think that would bring them back? Would it be a blunt, open, honest conversation where they can discuss where they are and what their struggles are? Do they have that, you think?
I think it's authenticity. I think
Beautiful.
it's genuineness.
Absolutely.
I think if they can relate to who's talking to them
Amen.
and say, that guy has walked in my shoes,
There you go.
that's different. I think
I think about that.
The way I think about it is there are a lot of parents that wait till their kids get out of the home to get divorced.
Yeah.
In my extended family, there are a lot of couples, there are a lot of parents that waited for their kids to get out of the house to stop going to church.
So good.
Right?
That's a good analogy.
That's just how they did it. They waited till the kids were gone, and they launched them out, and they said, now we don't have to go to church
They did
anymore
it for the
because we're not
family.
trying to-"
They did it for
The deal is, those kids know before the parent ever drops out of the church that that's not really where their head's at.
Yep.
But I think it's a lack of genuine community, a lack of genuine authenticity, a lack of, I was at a church not long ago, and I don't want to be a jerk about it, but the pastor got up and he was talking about sin behavior and how we struggle against sins, and he said, I really want to confess something. My struggle is with cookies.
Oh,
He said, I love cookies. And he said, I will go to the store and I'll buy a box of cookies. And man, I love eating cookies. And I went, really, with everything that the men in this church are struggling with, the confession that you're going to make, because everybody's kind of on the edge of their seat.
Yeah.
And I think guys' hearts are opening up, and he's about to say something that I can relate to. And he's like, every day I eat 2 chocolate chip cookies and I just can't stop. And
he could have said?
I mean, and he wasn't binge eating. He wasn't saying, I'm a binge eater.
I deal with self-control. Self-control would have been better than if you said cookies.
But he's making it namby. He's making it safe and something to go out there and you get a couple of giggles. But he's not real.
You could almost feel the air leave the room.
I know.
As guys are saying, I struggle with pornography. I deal with spending addiction. I deal with lust. I deal with, cheating on my taxes. I rip off my employer. All the stuff that guys do.
Yeah.
And they're looking for somebody to say it and to pull it out of them.
Yeah.
And what they get is, every day if I don't get my 2 cookies, I'm a really grouchy guy. I say things that aren't kind to my wife. Oh my gosh. Yeah. And there are guys that haven't talked to their wife in 2 weeks.
Yeah,
and he's
emotionally
saying,
or
oh
opened
my
up.
gosh.
And I was the guy that used to say those things.
Yeah.
And I could tell you that leadership used to look at me and go, oh man, slow down. The men who are at those things would come to me and say, thank you.
Of course.
That's why I wrote this, because most guys that have read this now look and they say, thank you for saying the things that I had been scared to say in open forum. Thank you for divulging some of this, because it gets a little bit of, we can start dialoguing on it.
Right.
Yeah. And for me, I don't need someone that's walked my road, but I need someone who's going to be honest, who I can learn from.
Yeah.
You've done a different thing than I have, but you're being honest, and I can learn from you. And that's why we're here. We're trying to figure that out. You've helped people who travel for a living. Tobin and I both have traveled for our jobs in the past.
Extensively. Yeah.
And I had a pastor Tobin, I think it was Mark Matlock.
Oh, you're kidding.
Was he at Rock Harbor for a little while?
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because Mark had traveled, and I was doing over 100 events a year. And I'm on the road all the time. I'm on the road 250 days a year, 275. And I'd come home and I'd go to church, but I always felt disconnected because how many Sundays am I there if I'm traveling that much? Yeah. And he saw that. I'm sure it was Mark.
Yeah.
How funny. I've not thanked him for this, and I should. He's been on the program a bunch of times now. But he said, people struggle. He called it HALT, halt. Hungry, angry, lonely, tired.
Okay.
You're on the road, you do a big event, because I'm a big public speaker, and you come off a stage, you've talked to tons of people, they think you're amazing, and then you go to a hotel room by yourself, and it's just a huge crash. So you're alone, and I don't eat before I speak, and so I'm always going to be hungry. And when I get hungry, I get angry. and then you're exhausted. And he goes, you just make mistakes. He goes, you got to figure out. And he just said, you can always call. You can always call. If you get back to a hotel and you need someone to talk to, you can always. And sometimes you just need to talk to somebody for a couple of minutes.
Yeah.
And then you get talked down. You're on this huge adrenaline high, and it mellows out. And he'll say, have you eaten? No. You going to do that? Because it's probably a good idea.
Yeah. Well, I had men that I would call, though, when I'd get back to the hotel room, because that was where I had some of my worst struggles on the road with television and some of the, the pornography and things like that, because you're alone. I mean, just that word, you're alone, just kind of really sets up things. So that was where I had a group of men that I would call and say, hey, going back to the room, I've tried to call the front desk, tell them to kind of disengage. But that level of honesty, just the men, they like that. It's refreshing because we're all struggling. We all have something.
I think we want a band of brothers.
Yeah.
I loved that show when it was on HBO, this idea that when you go into battle together, there's something that changes.
Yeah.
And that once you're a Marine or once you're an Army Ranger or once you're one of those kind of guys, you can meet another guy who's walked in your shoes, who's done the training that you've done, who's experienced what you've experienced. And your road doesn't have to be the same, but you have a bond with that person. And I think that comes out of a sense of honesty.
Yeah.
And when Ryan is honest, or when you're honest, or when I'm honest, there are other people that say, okay, you haven't walked my exact path, but you know some of my pain.
Right.
And you know some of my struggle. And I can open up to you. I know you're going to be safe because we have that bond that we share. And that's not coming from the pulpit for the most point. And I'm not trying to bash churches either.
Yeah.
But that's not where we're seeing it.
Hey, Ed, we just crossed Easter. We just passed it a little while ago. And it's interesting because you talk about Easter in your book, how most churches, and I'd never thought about this. I love it when I hear something brand new and I go, ooh, that's cool. Most churches use Easter as a time to invite your friends that don't go to church who aren't Christians.
Yeah.
Which is, I guess on one hand I understand it, but on the other, you pretty much know what you're getting into when you go.
Yeah.
It's not often surprising. But you talk about how churches ought to use that time to focus on people that used to go to church that don't go anymore. And that's an interesting one. How do we do that? How do we reach out to people that used to go to church who have become disillusioned, maybe a little bit bitter, and aren't going anymore? How does a church reach out to that group?
Yeah. After we finished writing A Simpler Faith, my wife and I put together a leader's guide called The Simpler Faith, Reaching Out to the Wounded. So it's a very therapeutic book, and what I started doing, I kind of got disengaged, had some experiences that I just want to take a little bit of a break, and I started meeting with men at the gym that I train at. And you're always, sitting around, pumping iron, talking to different guys, and I found that a huge number of gentlemen at the gym don't go anymore. They had a faith, they grew up in a particular Protestant denomination, and they stopped going. And I started having Bible studies with those guys.
Is
just
there a
down.
pattern on why? Does it revolve around similar issues?
Yeah.
Or is it just all over the map?
Yeah, I think the number one is something you touched on already, where it's this disappointment with the human element of church. The religious community putting together large groups, large denominations. They become very bureaucratic. They become very corporate-like in their structure. In the book,
What do you mean by that?
Well, it's that you have a structure set up where you have that senior pastor, an executive pastor, an elder board, and it's all about making sure that you pay off those big loans that can happen, and you'll do whatever you can do to kind of keep people's fannies in the seats, and that's where you have that kind of disconnect of the people in the pews, and I just in the book I have a particular chapter in there where I call the wizard mentality, where I think a lot of men really want to see that openness. They don't want to hear the cookie example. They want to hear that particular pastor talk about his struggles, be real. And I find that, a lot of men used to tell me that, boy, it really irked me that my wife would say, boy, why can't you be more like Pastor so-and-so? Why can't you be more like Pastor so? And I think some of the ladies can just kind of hold someone up, maybe up on a pedestal, and the men look, and if they don't think they can hit that, they get discouraged. They want to run.
Yeah.
And
it's what I said. If I'm never going to be able to obtain that goal,
exactly,
I'm not going to try to get there knowing I'm going to fail over and over again.
Yeah.
Beth Moore talks about a little bit of that when she says, don't be unhappy with good because you can't have great. We had Kim and Troy Meter on, and they have a book called Average Joe. So you got a husband that goes to work, pays bills, that loves you, but because he's not, Ryan Gosling in The Notebook, you're unhappy.
Yeah.
It's like let's look at the average guy and say, hey, this is a good dude.
Yeah.
He went to work today. Laura has thanked me for going to work when she knows I don't want to go.
Right.
Yeah.
And it didn't make my work day better, but it made me better because I know someone out there appreciates the struggle.
Yeah.
And I think it's because one of the questions that I've got when you see a church headed down the wrong path, where you've got a pastor that has complete ultimate control. And I look at that and I think it's probably an impossible job. If you've got a pastor that's trying to fundraise and building manage and do HR and hire and fire and counsel and preach, something's not going to get done right. It's kind of like the In-N-Out Burger mentality.
Yeah.
In-N-Out Burger does one thing and they do it great. And maybe you can get, when Mark Matlock was at Rock Harbor, they had a teaching pastor and they had a head pastor. And they would do different jobs and allow the teaching pastor to focus more on what he was going to preach on and counseling people and individual things like that. When you see a church headed down the wrong path, how long do you stay and try to work with that? Support a pastor, encourage a pastor, and at what point do you go, you know what? Maybe it is time to go.
Yeah. My experience has been in talking to lots of men about that is if you can find and you need to have grace, you need to give them, as much understanding. And yes, some people are in situations. I would stick it as long as you can. But for me, it was when my personal relationship with God was starting to wane, when I was not growing, when I was being affected by the surroundings, that is when I realized it was time for me to find someplace new. And I just think, and if you have men who just find more reasons not to go on Sundays than go, I think that's a good time, and that would be a sign for me that they're starting to not want to be involved.
Yeah. Did I hear you got the nickname Toto for exposing the wizard?
I did. And again, I don't find anything funny about that. And I know people, every time they come to me, they just go, hey, Toto. That was the most painful time of my life.
Yeah, I can't imagine.
The most painful time of my life when you're looking at people that you love, that you served with, and that you see things happening where you go, can we not talk about this? Can we bring this up in a group forum and at least say, hey, might have stepped over the line. I need to say I'm sorry. I said, people will love us for being honest. And a lot of times that honesty is just not sought after. It's better to make it look like everything is okay or we're above that being able to kind of get there. And that was crushing for me, to be able just to plead with some staff members and say, let's start anew. Let's just say where we've gone wrong. Yeah. Let's expose, let's be transparent, let's just kneel at the foot of the cross. Yeah. Christ will forgive us all. And to be looked at and saying, we really just put this under the carpet because that wouldn't look good for ABC, this person. Yeah. I go, but that's the point. That's the brokenness. You could have a lot of
disillusioned parishioners, when things are getting exposed and brought to light you can have splits and things like that in the church.
You could, but if it's just a matter of, we're not talking about anything that was financial or sexual. We're just talking about just power. Power and control things that I just wanted to be very blunt about and talk about.
Let's say there's a pastor listening today and he's saying, I want to have this atmosphere in my church where I'm not going to get up and embarrass myself or my church. There's a pastor I'm thinking of who struggled with some things and he just won't stop talking about it, where I think he's doing long-term damage to his family and to the church, where he continues to, there is such a thing as too much honesty.
I would agree.
But he's saying, I want to have grace in my congregation and I want to have honesty in my congregation. How do we foster something like that when we get defensive so easily? Or you have, I was talking with someone recently about Jim Burns. Jim Burns and Doug Fields, two of my mentors in the past, are working together. And they used to do extensive work with youth pastors. And they said there's a honeymoon phase, and immediately when that is over, you start working on your resume. Because it only takes one angry parent to get a youth pastor fired. You can have hundreds of kids in your youth group, and one parent can get you fired. And that's not honesty, and that's not openness, and it's not grace to be able to work through, because I think not being able to work through issues as a church transfers to every aspect of life. Then it says, well, in your marriage, then you can't work through issues either. You just, find something else. How does a pastor, especially to the men, foster that kind of honesty and grace? I mean, it seems like kind of a little bit of a tightrope, but I think it can be done. Yeah,
I believe that I did that. When I was a men's ministry leader, I wasn't so specific that I was, saying things that were, so detailed, but was talking about struggling with pornography in general, or some, working too hard, and I was being too much on trying to work my way up the corporate ladder, or I always wanted to buy something, a better car, and I was dealing with, just some of the basics that men deal with, sexual stuff and finances and envy and things like that. I think it could be general, but genuine. And I really think you can to do that. And then in part of the book, and especially in the Leader's Guide, it talks about a pastor going up front and saying, on behalf of the church, meaning wherever you've been in your last 10, 20, 30, 50 years as walk as a Christian, on behalf of religion and all the pastors and priests and reverends and ministers, to say sorry if you've been caught in something where you were hurt by a leader. Sorry. Just to own that. Just in a general way and say, sorry that if the church has hurt you, I want to do better. If I do that, come talk to me. Let's keep it civil. I don't need any bashing. But to have that kind of give and take and say, come into my office and we can talk. A lot of times at some of the bigger places, you really can't get to.
I just saw a photograph of a church doing that. They went to a gay pride parade, and it was a group of pastors, and they had a sign that said, I'm sorry if we have hurt you in the past.
Oh my gosh.
And here's the thing, I can't apologize for something that you do, but if I am representing church, even if I've not done it, I can apologize for that and say, I understand. You have a valid complaint. You have a valid concern. And the response was pretty overwhelming of people coming over and hugging them. And I thought, there you go. It's an open door.
Man.
It's an open door. You're not ashamed of your faith. You're not ashamed of your church. You're not embarrassed by the church behind you. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the past church. I just wouldn't be here. I know the history of the church and my family. And it's not perfect, but they've done a really good job. But just saying, hey, listen, as a Christian, I'm sorry. I know that there have been Christians in the past that have, done some crazy things. Let's talk about this, though. Tobin and I have a number of friends that we've talked about that are in this boat who say, well, I'm disillusioned. That's the other thing. We've got a little cultural thing. I remember there was a book a while ago called Dear Church, Letters from a Disillusioned Generation. And I wouldn't even read it. And maybe it's a good book. I've bashed it so many times, which is not a very nice thing to do. But it just seemed whiny. I was like, you know what? Was it perfect? No, but neither are you. And maybe they needed someone to say, I'm sorry, as the body of the church. But my concern comes with when I see people that are like, you know what? This split happened at our church, and I'm tired of all the, shenanigans that are happening in church in general, and so I'm not going to go anymore. But there is a shallowness of faith that I see oftentimes to where it's not, I'm not going to go to this corporate church, but I am going to go to a Bible study, and I'm going to continue to read the Word, and I'm going to stay in community. I'm throwing everything out, baby out with the bathwater, and then they start doing crazy stuff, and I think,
Of
It was
course.
only a couple of months ago that you were a regular churchgoer. Really?
Yeah.
And I think there is a responsibility to be, because you have a big push for community. And we've got to take responsibility for that. Just because somebody does something that you don't agree with, let's say a pastor falls or a split happens in the church or someone says something dumb to you, it doesn't negate the gospel and it doesn't negate the cross. Yeah. And to throw all of it out really is doing everybody a disservice.
Yeah, and I agree with you 100%. And in fact, in there I say, and whenever I'm speaking with someone, I'll say that if you're sitting at a church and the new music minister happens to play more old hymns than you like, that's not a reason to be leaving a church. I mean, you can go go buy some Mercy Me or Third Day cassettes and kind of get that what you need. It's got to be something that absolutely is drawing you away from your relationship with God. It's got to be something legitimate. Try to push through, try to stay. But in the end, if it's really getting,
There's a spiritual warfare component to that, though, in my mind.
Yeah.
I mean, pastors are at a point. I had the experience of going to work at a church for a year. Most eye-opening. I've been going to church my whole life. My dad was a pastor, and I just got this call to come down and help out at a church. The thing that's so ironic is people want their pastor to be perfect, and they resent him for being perfect. There's this double-edged sword where if our pastor falls, he's out. If there's a sexual sin, if there's a financial impropriety, if there's a pride issue, if there's a power grab, if there's whatever it is, that guy's gone. But, man, he gets up on the stage and he's so inauthentic, I don't know how to relate to him. And it seems like there's a spiritual issue of I need to hang on and accept this person as a person, relate to them as a brother in Christ, and not sit in judgment of them so that they create this environment in which I can be all warm and cozy and comfortable. And I think I know guys are looking for an excuse to quit. And I think that's a spiritual battle that Satan comes into a dad's life or a husband's life and says, my goal is to get you out of this church. My goal is to get you out of this community. My goal is to get you out of serving. And so I'm going to do things in that church that are going to give you an excuse to walk away.
Yeah.
And that just exacerbates. I mean, I think Ryan's point is right. We have friends that they're 2 months out of church or 3 months out of church, and everything falls apart.
Yeah.
And they come to you and they say, man, everything's falling apart. And you go, really?
Yeah.
Wonder why that happened.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Well, 2 points on that is one is that I personally, for me, and in the book, I think it comes out loud and clear, I don't expect those leaders to be perfect.
Right.
I know we want that, and I think that's just something that's just more it's a hero worshiping mentality.
Yeah.
With people on TV, with sports, everybody just wants a hero. I don't believe that that's healthy, and I talk about that strongly, saying every pastor that I'm around now and I sit down with, I go, you don't need to be perfect. In fact, I know you won't be. So let's take that right off the table.
Right.
And I still love you and support you. Just be honest. So that I believe. And then the second part that you were saying, in the book I use a lot I talk about the screw tape letters, and I just say the bickering. And that's really what the book focuses on, the concept of if you're on the street, I'm on my cul-de-sac, I have Catholicism my path and even in an evangelical church. If I know there's a gentleman that's a Methodist, a Lutheran, a Seventh-day Adventist, and a Presbyterian, we should be able to get together and have a Bible study, put all our differences aside, and be able to kneel and be able to be one at the foot of the cross.
Yeah.
Because every one of those groups came from the cross of Jesus Christ. That's not preached, though. A lot of times from the front, it is more membership, stay in your kind of your grouping. I'm just trying to say that in the big picture, it doesn't matter what denomination within Trinitarian faith, you should be able to love on them and be united, not have the evangelical, the Baptist look at the Lutheran or Episcopalian and go, oh my God. Now, I just think we should, a united front would speak to the world of people who aren't de-churched but are unchurched. Unity. Unity amongst believers.
I'm going to hit something that you just talked about when you're talking about pastors not being perfect. I got to give credit where credit's due. Producer Whitney sent me a note saying it's like when kids are growing up and they realize their parents aren't perfect.
Yeah.
And a lot of people struggle with that, thinking, I thought you were this, and I found out you're human.
Yeah.
And we all are, and you've got to overcome that and deal with it. I think that would grow the church body a lot. Okay, the book is called A Simpler Faith. And I think something that you just touched on, where when you've got Trinitarian believing denominations, you should be able to get together and say, listen, I know we don't agree on everything. You sprinkle, we dunk. And I want to work together. Is that the simpler faith? What does it boil down to when, your father has passed away and your brother? If you were going to talk to them and explain the simpler faith, what would that be?
Yeah, it would be a safe place for men or women of different denominations within Trinitarian groups to be able to cross over those denominational barriers. And there are denominational barriers and walls built up, that's what I feel. And to be able to, like I said, at a workplace, in your neighborhood, when you're not under your roof on Sunday, which is totally fine to go where you want, but on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, why can't we come together and do projects together, have a Bible study together, put those differences aside, but be able to just focus on the concept of the creator of the universe, Jesus Christ as Messiah on the cross as our Savior, and the Holy Spirit our guide. In the book I used that.
When Christ preached through parables and outright teaching, it wasn't super complex.
No.
It was love me above all others, love your neighbor as yourself.
Yes.
I mean, that's pretty simple. It's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard in practice
Yeah.
at times. You actually got to share the gospel with your father before he passed away using
I did.
a simpler faith.
Yeah, I used. I just went to Luke 23, the concept of the thief on the cross, and I looked at my father. Looks at me and he goes, "Eddie," he goes, "Man, I grew up Catholic. I've been to your Baptist church, your evangelical church. I watch guys on TV. I probably have seen 7 or 8 or 9 or 10 different ways of approaching faith. What do I need to do? What's the one thing?" So I just went to Luke 23.
I got to ask, what was that like?
Oh,
To have your dad ask you that.
phenomenal.
You got tears in your eyes right now.
Oh, man. Just phenomenal seeing him, because he had the mesothelioma, which is the asbestos poisoning from so many guys that were blue-collar guys, in the trades, got that. And we were getting close, and he just said, "What do I need to do?" And I just took him to Luke 23, and I said, "Pop," I said, "the thief on the cross next to Jesus just told him in simple terms, I believe you are the Messiah. I believe you are the Christ, and I accept that." And Christ looks at him and just says, "Today you'll be with me in paradise." I said, "You just need to have your moment with God alone, saying, I believe that God, you sent Jesus Christ for me, and that you're my, And then the neat thing in that is that I left. I was there for several weeks. I had to go, and then I got the phone call, flew back into Newark Airport, get in a car with the neighbor, and as we're driving, he says, "Yeah, he's not doing well," and he says, "But I was with him this week," and he said, "I'm good to go because I had my moment with God. I had my moment, and I'm ready." I'm sorry, but you just
Don't be sorry. You're kidding me?
And to know that you were able to just share a simple story about the thief on the cross, and just say, "Pop, you just need to be able to tell God, thank you. I believe Jesus was the Messiah. I accept that." And to know that he did that, man. And then I went to the room. I was there for about an hour. He was already way, like just starting to the body was starting to kind of shut down. And I had a chance to pray him home. So that was an amazing time. Yeah. An amazing time. But 65 years old, going through 7, 8, 9 different groups, and he's still at the end of his life wasn't sure what was expected of him. And it's I just find so many men just saying, it's so complicated and so many warring factions, and this group throws bombs at this one and us against them. All groups that came from the cross of Jesus Christ. It shouldn't be that complex. Yeah. That men can at least understand that Jesus died for me. I need to accept him. And then wherever roof I want to go to, I go to. Yeah. That's fine.
Yeah, yeah.
But we're not as different. But the systems do that. I just think it's a human thing. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. They separate us.
Ed, I got to ask, you've really gone through a ton recently. Your dad passes away at 65?
65.
Your brother at 49. Mm-hmm. You're taking care of your mom now because she's had a stroke.
She stroked 10 days after Michael passed, just because of the pressure on her. Yeah.
How are you holding up?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good because, like, to be honest with you, we released a book a couple weeks ago, and now I'm getting those. Man, I probably have had 80 to 100 people call me from my past friends and family who have gotten the book, and they say, "Thank you, thank you."
I want to ask you about that, but first, I wonder. It's not that it's not difficult. Clearly, it would be difficult to lose family members and have infirm family members. But your faith isn't complex. You know, there's not an infinite amount of hoops you have to jump through to maybe hopefully obtain a goal. It's been boiled down, so you have security in that. Does it help to have that security, to know you're on the right path, to not be 65 wondering what's been expected of you?
Yeah. It does, yeah, and through all this, the dealing with losing my dad and then losing my brother and my mom, I would say that I live on a daily basis thinking that I'm closer to going home. And to be honest with you, I like that. I really think. In fact, I wrote I read a piece on Steve Jobs after he passed away, and he wasn't that spiritual of a guy, I don't believe, from what I read, but he did say that until you deal with the concept of death, do you only then overcome your fears and the things that kind of keep you from, doing things. That's a great place to be. And I got to be honest with you, just dealing with those losses have made me realize now's the time. If you're going to say it, say it. Do it in the living years, and don't be scared, and put the fear behind you, and God's in control, and that's what the reason why the book came out.
Yeah. Now, tell me the response. What are you hearing from people?
Unbelievable.
Are you hearing from people like your dad saying, "I thought there was all of this, and now I know I'm right there"?
I sent it out. I sent the blast email out to friends and family. It went on to their friends and family. Had a guy from the Washington, D.C. area who I, don't really know very well, and he called me up and he just says, "Hey, man, just want to say thank you. I have been estranged from church for about the last 10 years. My wife and I came from different denominations. We could never find a way to kind of work it where we blended those two together." And he says, we just almost were at the point of giving up. And he says, now after reading, they said their faith is strong. They want to go back and be in community, and they just said, we're just going to go to a group that's not the group that we came from, but to kind of compromise into another group. But we're going to have a Bible study, and just that sense of you don't have to totally walk away. I mean, there's so many biblical references in Ezekiel that talks about a sheep and going off into the pastures that the shepherds need to go find them. And that's in the book I'm saying, shepherds, to the clergy, to the leadership, go find these sheep that are lost, that have a faith in God, but we can't let them be out there to be opened up to the wolves that can go attack them. Yeah. Which is when you're away, the mice will play. I mean, people start getting you start doing things.
Sure. Really well, and the people that haven't been going to church in a while, they're going to try it out. I'm sure you've got friends that are in the same boat as you. Why not try it together?
Yeah.
Or start a Bible study together. At least accountability.
Something.
You need something. You can't do it alone. It's just too much.
Yep.
It's too much.
I tried to in the back. I really just tried to give some basic steps. Heck, I even just say if you're the kind of person that you haven't even had a personal prayer to God in a while, in the morning when you wake up in the stillness of your heart, just start praying. Just start thanking Him. Thank Him. Ask for forgiveness, and just do it. If it's that simple, that's a big step for some people.
Yeah,
that might be a big step.
Yeah. And tell me about the leadership guide.
Yeah, leadership.
I appreciate that. A lot of people write a book and then they'll also sell a leadership guide. Yeah. And you've got that. That's awesome.
Yeah. And we did this because of the maybe like, say, 8 to 10 pastors that I sent the book to. They said, I like this. I can hand this to the men that I know are not going, to the wife who sits alone on Sunday. I can say, give this to your husband and have him do a couple chapters. See if he can connect with it, and then I'll meet with them. And then they said that, but we want to make sure that if we need to connect with our leadership team, our small group leaders, how should they go to touch the wounded? Because some people have some pretty big wounds. I mean, sometimes people have been wronged in ways. And I went to a local.
Thank you. Hey, let's stop for a second.
Yeah.
I hope that I've not given the impression that people have left the church have left it for petty reasons. There are some people that have left churches for petty reasons.
Yeah.
There are some people that have left churches for very serious reasons, and I do not want to belittle that.
Yeah.
So if listeners have felt that, I apologize, because those that have been wounded need healing. If they're not going to get an apology from the person that wounded them, they need a healing and an understanding anyway.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, and I agree with you on both counts. I just want to make sure that I'm there for the people who literally will sit down with you, which way I have, and can break down in tears and talk about how much pain church has inflicted on them. That's where my heart breaks.
Yeah.
That's who I want to go. So I went to a local gentleman who's a PhD psychotherapist, Harvey Powers. He's up in the Denver Tech Center. He works with lots of churches. Wonderful, wonderful gentleman. And when I ran it by him, my wife Lynette helped me put it together because she's a 30-year MFCC, marriage and family child counselor. And this is for really more the leadership team to go say, how do we move to those people who have true wounds, true inflicted wounds, not petty things, but true wounds. How do we go and say, we're sorry, come on back, and please get back to community? The whole theme of the book is really to simplify faith down to the cross of Christ. And people might say, well, that's pretty simple. It's a starting place. I mean, and then you branch off from there you want, but that's a rally place. And then to go to those that have been wounded and have walked away and say, we're sorry. We need to do a better job. For God's sake, we need to do a better job.
Yeah.
We really do.
I agree. That's funny. We're going to ask you a question that we ask our guests, but in a way, you're bivocational now because you're still a pharmaceutical rep.
Yeah.
You're also an author.
Yes.
You got two professions. In both jobs, what is it that you wake up and go, I can't believe it? Or you come back from the end of a day and you go, I can't believe it. I got paid to do that today. I got paid to do that. You know, the other day I was up speaking at an event and it went so well. And then they paid me. And I just thought, to feel this way, I'd do it for free. Don't tell my sponsors this. But I would. You know, when you feel that amazing at the end of something and then someone goes like, oh, hey, you could pay your mortgage now too after feeling this good. Yeah. You know, with repping pharmaceuticals to a community that gets ostracized, what do you look back on and go, I love that I get to do this as a living? What aspect of your job is most fulfilling in that area?
It is reaching out with that population that I felt 16 years ago was being looked at from the Christian community in a way that I could not live with.
Yeah.
I mean, really, and not all Christian community. Again, just that small pocket. Yeah. There's always that fringe group on everything
but it's
you
loudest.
have.
The fringe is loud.
It is always the loudest. And
it colors the rest of us. It makes it hard on the rest of us. You get to be an ambassador for Christianity, not just Christians, but as a whole, the Christianity people that feel wounded.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome.
So to be able to reach out to the wounded within church, and I could tell you when I first started doing work with with patients that are HIV positive and doctors who deal with HIV positive patients, I would say, I'm a Christian, and I'd say, what are your initial thoughts there? And I just go, we're kind of getting braced to get hit with something or get, kind of really challenged and just feel some stuff. And I said, I'm going to love you. I said, so you're just going to get unconditional love from me.
Yeah.
So it's a win-win. Awesome. It really is. It's a win-win.
Awesome. The book's been out for a few weeks now. What's the best part about being an author and having a book that's out there?
Hearing people call up and having them say, thank you, I'm going to re-engage with community.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's been the part that every day I get that and I put the phone down and then I just need a couple minutes just to kind of, just weep because I live very emotional. I'm a very emotional person.
Me
I don't know if that's my Italian or Polish and New Jersey roots, but I mean,
the booth is making fun of me because I'm the crier here.
If I'm sitting down with a man, if we're not laughing and crying during a lunch and eating a good meal, it's not a good lunch. I tell people, I said, you want to know me, you need to cry with me.
Yeah.
That's so.
You hear that, producer Whitney? Yeah. Whitney doesn't cry.
Oh, no. Well.
I wear my heart on my sleeve.
We'll go spend some time together.
There you go.
We'll see. We'll see about that.
Yeah. As you travel around, as you speak and you do men's groups and you talk to people, do you have a favorite memory that you look back on that you go, oh, that's, there are times where I do an event and I think, I wish they could all be like that, where it was, it was really meaningful. Do you have something like that? Yeah,
I would say it was a particular men's retreat that I did where I was able to be very vulnerable. And one of the first times I did, because I thought, ooh, should I do this? And I said, I've got to do this. It's just, you just want to reach men. And in one of the retreats that I did, I just was honest about some of my trials and things that I was struggling with. And afterwards, again, probably at least 56% of the men, literally within a day or two, came up to me and said, that was life-changing for me because awesome. I realized I'm not dealing with this stuff alone. I mean, it was that, again, thank you for being honest that I realize that we fail. And that you're letting me know that it...
Right there, though, that's community. Yeah. I realized I'm not alone. I'm not alone.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Proudest moment?
Oh, boy.
Now, do you have just one child?
I have two kids.
Two kids.
Yeah. So, I mean...
It's got to be pretty proud to have your son graduate college.
Yeah, graduate college. I mean, birth of kids. I had a chance to baptize the kids on my own at the Colorado River, at some place with some houseboats. Really, to pray my dad home.
Did you dunk or did you sprinkle?
Dunk. We dunked, yeah.
And then splashed.
But praying my father home. Yeah. I would say that was something. I'm not sure if there's anything better than that, being at that moment, to just at that moment feel that physical release, and in that room, I mean, it was just surreal.
Yeah.
And to be able to just say, Pop, go.
I've been thinking about that a lot. I lost my friend Christopher a number of years ago, and I don't, I have to be honest, I don't know why. I've lost all four of my grandparents, and it was difficult. This one was more. I mean, maybe it's because we were similar in age and all of that. But I hang on to the fact that I'm going to see him someday. I really am. Yeah. We're going to get to spend eternity together.
Amen.
I've got the program from his memorial service on my fridge, and I see it every day. And I talk to him regularly. If I'm struggling with something, I tell Chris what's going on. And I don't know if he hears me or not. I don't care. But I get to see him someday. And what an amazing thing to have prayed with your dad and to know that for eternity you get to be together.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
You have that hope of reuniting and that hope in eternity. Yeah.
Let me give you a two-parter. Most influential person in your life from birth now, and then currently most influential person in your life.
Okay. To be honest with you, one of the gentlemen, a Christian author and writer, I don't know how people are going to feel about this. I'm a little more moderate in my faith, but 25 years ago, picked up a couple tapes and started listening to Tony Campolo, and a huge Tony Campolo fan as far as just his heart for the kind of downtrodden and the people, social needs and stuff like that. So been reading and listening to a lot of him. I would say that he formulated a lot of my thought process in the world of Christianity. So I just love where he comes from. I love his kindred spirit.
My dad played his message, It's Friday and Sunday's Coming, for me hundreds of times when I was younger.
Wow, cool.
It's interesting. There are some theological issues that I differ on with Tony.
So do I.
And he loves people.
Yeah.
And he loves it with everything he can do.
Yep.
And he loves people passionately.
Yep.
And I can take a lesson from that.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting because you really have a lot of bridge building in your book. Yeah. And I think we need to do more of that.
Yep.
And we need to meet, wow, Tobin, you're going to hear something you've never heard me say. Okay?
Hit me.
This isn't a theological faith conversation. There are times where we need to reach across the aisle.
Really?
I bash politicians for saying we're going to reach across the aisle because I'll never vote for someone that reaches across the aisle.
No.
But there are times where we need to say, you know what, we disagree on a lot of things. And I love you and I care about you. Andy Brainer, he was over in Saudi and he was talking with a Muslim man for a great deal of time. They're both in this kind of group together trying to figure out, can we bring faiths together? Is there a way to try to build some kind of relationship? And the guy looked at his watch and said, it's time for me to go pray. And I hope I'm not speaking out of turn. And he said, well, I'll go with you.
Wow.
And the guy looked at him funny and was like, well, is that okay? And he said, sure. And so they went to his office and he laid out 2 prayer mats and he explained what he was doing to get clean before he could pray. And Andy understood and he started praying, I think in Arabic. And I said, well, what'd you do? And he goes, I started praying the Lord's Prayer.
Amen.
And so the entire time the other guy was praying, he was praying the Lord's Prayer. And they finish, and the other guy says, I bet you wonder what I was praying. And then he goes, no, I didn't really. And he goes, why? And he goes, well, you're a man of faith. I assume that you're praying to the God that you believe in for strength and for goodness and for a better life for you and for your family and for, relationships with people like me. Yeah. And he said the look on his face was so shocking. He was so stunned. Yeah. And then he said, well, what did you pray? And he goes, well, Christ taught us to pray the Lord's Prayer. And so I prayed the Lord's Prayer. And the guy got big tears in his eyes and threw his arms around him. And he said, good for you. Man. And I just think that's building the bridge.
Yeah, that's
it's
opening
up.
Yeah.
Hey, Ed, thank you.
Oh, yeah. Thank you.
I appreciate you coming down. I mean, you spent an hour and a half with us today. Yeah. You've got a great book. It has given me a ton to think about. We will have links to your ministry site and the book site and how to get the book and everything else at groundradio.com, and I will tweet it out and put it on Facebook everywhere I possibly can.
Thank you.
I know the great majority of our listeners have family or friends that have left the church. This is a good starting place, and I appreciate it.
Yeah, that's what I really want it to be, a place just to acknowledge things that have happened and give people. That's why I chose that word, hope, for people. Hope for those who struggle with church. I want to give them a chance to an avenue back to community. You really need to be in community. You have to. I just but thank you so much. I really appreciate the time being here.
Our pleasure.
Thank you. Thanks for crying with me.
Anytime. God bless. Thanks for listening to our interview with Ed Galisewski. If you'd like a copy of this book or the leadership guide, email me, ryan@iamgrounded.com, or hit me up on Twitter @iamgrounded. We've got links to his website, videos, and other ways to get his materials, all at groundradio.com. Thanks for listening on this Worldview Wednesday. Again, Summit Ministries start up their summer session. Love to see you there. You can email me at ryan@iamgrounded.com. Man, I keep saying that over and over again. Hit me up on Twitter. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time here on Grounded.